Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, The Process of Process Improvement. My name is Deborah Araujo. I'm the founder and CEO of ClinBiz, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. We're going to give it just one other minute for any other folks who are still joining, and then we'll go ahead and get started, okay? Okay, so once again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at this wonderful webinar, The Process of Process Improvement. It is my great pleasure. My name is Deborah Araujo. I'm the founder and CEO of ClinBiz, and it's my pleasure to be welcoming you here today and being your host alongside Gerhard Baumann and Christina Boss from Motive Power. So as we said, Motive Powers are experts in project management and process improvement. And so it is really my great pleasure to welcome you to a very, very informative, very practical webinar that we're going to have here today. So just before passing it over to our speakers, I just like to go over, first of all, number one, can you guys hear me well? So if you can just go to the chat icon right on your right-hand side, and just type if you can hear well, or if you can hear me at all and see me, so that we can know things are going well from your end. That would be great. Thank you, Claudio. Okay, it seems like, okay, perfect. Nancy, thank you so much all. All right, perfect. So we know you guys can hear and see us. Excellent. Okay, so after that, so again, now you guys know about the chat feature, which is great. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If there are any sound issues, anything that's sort of a little snagged on technology end, please try not to X out or completely exit out of the webinar because you may have a little issue coming back in. Simply go ahead and refresh your page, and that should do the trick. Also, if your browser is giving you a little issue, you can always try Google Chrome browser, which tends to work very well. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to move on to our speakers. Just want to introduce you to both of our speakers today from Motive Power, Gerhard Baumann, who's the Senior Manager of Motive Power, and Christina Boss, who's Manager at Motive Power. And they're both here to give you a very practical and informative webinar on the process of process improvement. You're really going to get some great practical things, and also at the end, stick around for some great practical tools you're actually going to get. I love webinars that you actually get a couple of free things and tools as well. So stick around until the end, and you'll be able to have that. And also, if there are any major issues, you can just type it in the chat. If there's anything private you'd like to let us know, you can also send us a message or just simply send us an email as well to info@clinbiz.com. All right, well, thank you so much for joining. And with that, I'm going to pass it over, I believe, to Gerhard, who's going to introduce himself, and then Christina is going to start our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, my name is Gerhard Baumann. I'm a Senior Manager at Motive Power and currently lead the Process Improvement Service line. I have over 10 years of experience in project management and process improvement within engineering design, agriculture, food manufacturing, utility and renewable energy sectors. I'm an industrial engineer by training and hold a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt and PM certified as well by PMI. In terms of what I like to do, off work, I like sports, especially soccer, tennis, basketball, and lately I've been teaching my kids a bit of tennis skills so we can start playing when they get a bit more older. So, Christina.
All right, great. Thanks, Gerhard. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Boss. I'm a manager here at Motive Power. I joined the firm earlier this year. I also have recently joined the process improvement team with Gerhard and a few other folks. I have over 10 years experience in the healthcare field, mainly in project and program management. And I'm excited to be here today for this discussion. So welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and go off camera just so we're not distracted as we proceed through the slides. So give me one moment here. All right, great. All right, a little bit more about Motive Power. So as you see here, Motive Power is your consulting partner. We're focused on the art and science of operational improvement. We're also a certified woman-owned small business. And Motive Power, as Deborah mentioned, provides consulting services, including project management, cost controls, data analytics, and of course, process improvement. Those services are provided to the utilities, transportation, health and life sciences industries. However, we believe our personalized approach to transform strategy into an executable plan works for any business across any industry. All right, we're going to get started here. And what we're going to cover today, first, we're going to talk through the current pain points in the industry of clinical trials. We'll then go into process improvement for efficiency. We'll then discuss our process here at Motive Power, as well as an industry standard for process improvement. And then again, as Deborah mentioned, we will share some of our narratives and tools that we use in our process improvement projects. So, and we will leave some of those for you to be able to download and use yourself. All right, we're going to go ahead and kick it right off with the live poll here. So Deborah, if you can help us, but the question is, where do you typically experience a breakdown in process or suffer from lack of process? So think of your current day-to-day or any recent projects where maybe there were some stumbling points. Where do you believe those breakdowns took place? So I will let Deborah.
You can just go to the icon right on your right side and you can just answer right there. And we'll give it a couple seconds for people to provide a response. And if none of those options are what you have, then you can just simply type on the chat what your typical experience with breakdown the process is. We'll give it a couple seconds for everyone to respond.
Deborah, I'm seeing the start poll when I hover over mine, so I'm not sure if folks are seeing that. I saw you one person answered in the chat.
Okay, let's do this again. Let's try it. All right. Let me go ahead and just make sure.
Oh, it's now at the bottom. Mine says end poll, so people can go ahead and it should work now. And
Okay.
I see a few answers coming in, so great.
There you go.
And I saw a few answers in the chat, so thanks to those who answered in the chat.
All right, just 10 seconds and then we'll end it.
Okay.
All right, I think we got some good movement going there.
Oh, great.
Okay, all right, so let's end and let's see results.
All right, great. It looks like, oh, we have a tie here between, actually, I think if we add in Jeff's vote for number 3, that brings that one to the forefront there. So patient recruitment and retention, followed by resistance to new technologies, which is in alignment. So Informa Connect conducted a similar survey back in 2016. So a few years ago, prior to the coronavirus pandemic, et cetera, some of these new challenges we're facing that we didn't even have on our radar in 2016, but we're in alignment here. So trial design, regulation were the top challenges being faced, as well as costs and patient access. But just wanted to sort of compare and see how things lined up. And in the chat here, we had a few other answers. So Nancy mentioned a lack of documentation of process, and Claudio, resistance in the team, not open for new ideas or processes. So great answers. Thanks, you guys. All right. And these challenges often result in process improvement triggers. So as you encounter a challenge, that may present an opportunity to kick off a process improvement initiative. So perhaps your team encountered an audit where you had some remediation work to do. That may serve as a trigger into updating your process so that you can better handle the next audit. Again, these are very similar to the challenges, the answers from the survey there. So patient recruitment and selection may be a trigger for a process improvement project. Re-examining re-engineering existing known inefficient processes, analyzing your system capacity. Maybe you're taking on additional clinical trials and you need to check and make sure that your system and processes can support that, or maybe re-engineer some of them. High variability in timelines. So projects are consistently coming in late, or some early and some late, maybe some processes there that you may want to take a look at. And here we are reacting to the current environment. So again, COVID or pandemic, something might have occurred in the landscape that wasn't anticipated that results in needing to re-engineer, take a closer look at some of the processes, as well as we know this is a highly regulatory environment. So any changes or any requirements may result in some process improvement triggers. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Gerhard.
Thank you, Christina. Now we're going to dive into actually the definition of a process. As Russell and Taylor in their operations management book define a process as a group of related tasks with specific inputs and outputs. Well, in essence, what they're saying is that all work we perform is a process. And we can safely say that all of us are familiar with formal and informal processes in our daily work. So following with that definition, we can state also that the main purpose of processes is to create value for the customer, shareholders, or society. And in other words, the way in which we work determines the value we provide to our clients, shareholders, and society. Now, this is usually a question that we get. Why is process improvement needed? We just stated that the way in which we work determines the value we offer. So there is a direct correlation between value and process improvement. The more value we want to deliver, the more efficient the process we perform need to be. Then why do we need process improvement again? Well, we basically did some research about, what are the main reasons to embark into a process improvement effort. From the Center for Economics and Business Research in the UK, they identify basically 5 reasons. The first one is a process improvement project increases process efficiency. Then if we increase efficiency of a process, we will decrease costs associated with rework, mistakes, and delays. That actually triggers an increase in product quality as well. So process improvement projects tend to have a direct and positive impact on the quality of the goods and services produced, increasing customer satisfaction as well, which is something that we're going to see in a bit here in the other box. A process improvement project also decreases process costs and profits increase. The cost of each unit produced will fall as efficiency with which inputs are used increases. All other things being equal will also improve profits. Now, in terms of the market share and customer satisfaction, those two topics also increase, and this is an indirect impact on customer satisfaction that drives that market share and customer retention. And lastly is about job security and workplace satisfaction, which also increase. So indirectly improving job security also has a big impact in employee satisfaction. So those are facts about the industry and basically are reasons to have a process improvement project. Our process improvement methodology has 3 different components. The first one is process documentation and assessment, in which we document current processes and assess them to have a base for recommendations later on. The second component of our methodology is a process improvement framework that we develop internally, and it incorporates a change management subcomponent. We will focus this presentation around the framework that is presented here, and we'll walk through each of the stages in the following sections. And the third component that we have in the methodology has to do with training and transition. This transition of ownership is basically transitioning to the operational team after we implement the improvements. Now, the next section that we have another light bulb here, Deborah. So we'd like to enable the light bulb for the second one, which is basically, thank you. So the question that we want that we want to ask here is, what is a process improvement project your organization is currently undertaking or has in the pipeline for next year? Some of the options that we have here is optimizing trial design, response to regulations on recent projects, improving patient recruitment process, implementing new technology, or other. Just please comment on the chat.
Okay, we'll give it just a few more seconds. We have about 10 more seconds for everyone to input their response. We have some movement on the options going on, so. Okay, I'll give about 5 more seconds, and then we'll display the results.
Perfect. Okay. It looks like new technology is a big one that we have here. So yeah, new technologies usually enable, process improvement efforts. And the main reason is because you actually look for efficiency, right? However, if the technology is not accompanied by new processes, the technology is just not well received. So thank you for the polls. I think we have one comment here on the chat. No or very little processes in place currently. That's another one. Yeah, absolutely. Claudio, thank you for that. And I think we can move on to the next slide here. Now we're going to go and talk about the process for process improvement per se and our methodology. So for process improvement, basically we support developing and deploying both established and new processes, tools, systems, and structure to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our clients' processes. As stated here, we work with clients on a variety of improvement endeavors, and usually they are assessments of current business processes, future state definitions, and gap analysis. So tying back to Claudio's comment, basically we have assessment of current business process. Sometimes there are no processes in place, so we help our clients to actually identify current processes and document them, and then based on that assessment, start building a future state definition and a gap analysis. Also, typically we design and implement various processes and procedures when none of them exist, and we also develop and implement project operational and organizational governance, which is, in other terms, just guidance in terms of who decides what, who validates what, and who's in charge of what. And also we customize and standardize reporting and analysis, which is interesting to see all the time. There are many, many tools that need to be standardized for reporting and then, of course, for analysis. And also, as many of you may be familiar with the MAKE approach, which is, the MAKE stands for define, measure, analyze, and design, implement, and control. So we adapted that approach to build our own process improvement methodology. It's the same 5 stages, but with a bit of a change. We have the define, measure, analyze, and design, implement, and then transition ownership, which encompasses also control of the change and the improvement. We will walk through each of these stages using an example in the following slides, and the example will be basically very, very tied to the clinical trials environment. And before we jump into the example, let's explore the process improvement diagram that we have here. Basically, this is a diagram that summarizes the methodology. So we have 5 different stages with different specific steps within each of the stages. So on the define stage, we have define the problem, define the desired outcome, prepare to initiate the improvement. There's a go and no-go decision to actually embark into the process improvement project, and then send project introduction communication to the entire team and stakeholders that will be affected directly and indirectly. The second stage talks about the measure. So we want to measure what is the baseline, what is something that we have to compare against after we actually develop the improvement. So for that, we have we collect existing documentation, we interview with subject matter experts, we revise documentation to match as-is processes, and we define metrics and collect data to determine the baseline. These metrics are usually the ones that are critical for the business and for upper management and for operations as well. The third stage is the analyze and design. So we prepare for facilitation meetings and communicate with subject matter experts. We facilitate process meetings, and we perform gap and root cause analysis to see what are the main reasons why we're not able to actually perform at the desired operational target efficiency. We consider updated process options, and we assess those options and in terms of impacts, benefits, risk, and cost for each of them. And then we also document the new processes. At the implementation stage, which is the fourth one, we create process improvement, implementation, and change management plans. We test and validate the plans, and we also communicate the process improvement, implementation, and change management plans to stakeholders. So we have the validation from the stakeholders, and then we execute the plans and for process improvement and change management. And the last stage here at the transition, we actually collect the data to remeasure the metrics that we had captured at the beginning, at the measures stage. We execute the transition to operations and operational governance, and we publicize a successful solution among everyone. This is something that is very, very useful because sometimes people feel like, oh, there was a process improvement effort, but nobody communicated to us. Now we know. We want to actually make sure that everybody's involved in the process at the end, so they know what has been changed, what has been improved, and what needs to be improved still. And then at the end, we have a closeout and lessons learned session and documents as well. So let me pass here to the example that we have. The idea is that we want to the tools we use in a process improvement project with a scenario that we created from a project. And so the scenario is basically that your customer's last trial wrapped up 9 months late and $50,000 over budget due to participants dropping out during the last phase of the trial. They are about to start a new trial, but wanted to ensure that they didn't hit the same stumbling blocks as before. They have asked for assistance with the process used for selecting trial participants. So we're going to use our tools in order to go over this example. Okay, so having set up the scenario we just described, we're going to start a process improvement methodology journey. This stage answers the question, why is the process improvement entering an improvement cycle? And the purpose of the design stage, as we defined earlier, is to actually understand the problem and the process to be improved and determining the desired. Sorry, I'm hearing a bit of a background noise. Oh, thank you. So I was saying that the purpose of the define stage are basically to define the problem and processes to be improved, determining the desired solution and outcomes, prepare to initiate the improvement and understand customers and what is important to them, define the business case, and receive the green light to perform the improvement. This will be the go, no-go decision step that we have, and then identifying the project team and send the project introduction communication. That part of the introduction communication is crucial, so people can start getting engaged with the project. And the tools that we use are basically the process problem description document, improvement project charter, in which we just define, scope, stakeholders, objectives, and then we have a stakeholder map as well to show which key stakeholders have interest in power to perform the improvement. So let me pass it to Christina, who will show the example of the tools in the next slide.
Great, thank you. So as Gerhard alluded to, that first document there is the process problem description document. I know it's a little bit small. Hopefully you guys can see there, but the process name was, and this was filled out with our example. So clinical trial process my guess is we would want to even refine that a little bit further. This would be the clinical trial participant selection process. So this is a document that will focus in on what the focus is for this project, maybe the owners of the process, the issues occurring as part of the process, including some opportunities there, as well as scope, constraints, and assumptions. So this document will serve as an important tool for you to communicate and ensure that everyone working on the project knows what the problem they need to address is and why the project is important. So it's getting really clear right up front on the problem within the process that this project, this initiative is hoping to work through and resolve. The problem description document serves as an input into the project charter there on the right. If we have some project managers in the crowd, I'm sure you're very familiar with project charters, so that this charter will formally authorize the project, and it will outline in entirety the project. So it will help teams to quickly understand goals, tasks, timelines, stakeholders, etc. And if it's it's for the overall project, and if there's several re-engineering sub-initiatives going on within the processes, they would all roll up into this document. So there may be several process problem description documents that serve as inputs into the overarching project charter. And I believe, as Gerhard mentioned, the desired outcome of this phase and the utilization of these tools is to establish a baseline, identify your stakeholders, align expectations amongst the team and the stakeholders, note any constraints or challenges, and really you're just looking to set the foundation for this process improvement initiative with clear documentation and definition right up front. All right, I'll hand it back to Gerhard for stage 2.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, and with the second stage that we have here, which is all about measuring where you are relatively to the desired objectives by collecting and measuring data. This stage also serves the purpose of identifying the critical quality characteristics, which can be input, process, and output measures, prioritizing metrics, and estimating current capacities of the process. So the steps that we have in this stage are basically collect existing documentation, as we mentioned earlier, interview subject matter experts to get their inputs, their processes, and in some cases we have processes that are not formally documented, but people may have different versions of the same process. So we want to grab all of them in order to understand, okay, what is the best way to move forward and standardize those. So we revise those documentation to match an as-is process. And then we define metrics and collect data to determine the baseline as well, as we mentioned. The tools that we use in this stage of the process usually are MS Visio process maps. MS Visio is a Microsoft tool that is very well known within and very basic as well. So it's easy enough to use it, and it's powerful when you want to actually portray a process for everyone to understand. Then we have mean and mode formulas to understand averages. And we also have a voice of the customer, which is a tool to gather customers' expectations and preferences. So let me again pass the ball to Christina here. She's going to talk about the tool.
All right, great. So again, once your process improvement project is underway, you've clearly defined it, gotten buy-in and sign-off from all the stakeholders. We'll start with establishing the existing processes. So from our example, we were talking about patient selection. So you may want to use, we have a basic process flow chart here. So we capture all the decision points and activities within the project. We want to build a complete picture for the team, especially if members of the team only have partial visibility into the process. So I know I've encountered situations where people know they're part of the process, but they don't know the process in its entirety. So pulling together one of these process flow charts will really help bring to light, I think, all aspects of the process. And as Gerhard mentioned, so gathering this information, if you're leading this process improvement project, you would employ a variety of techniques. So you would perhaps start by collecting existing documentation if it existed. So if there's any desktop level procedures related to selecting patients or reaching out to them, you'd want to take a look at those. There may be some organizational policy documentations that would be helpful. Again, you'd interview some of those SMEs and probably then come together in a whiteboard session, bringing together various players in this process who come and go, or maybe someone who's involved end to end. And then once this current state is documented, you may want to update your existing documentation to match the as-is process. That way, you'll have a clearer definition of your baseline and where you may be gathering those metrics. So again, gathering metrics at this point in this process where possible is important. You can use those metrics to define your success in your process improvement initiative as well. So maybe gathering a baseline time of how long it takes from initial contact to a patient until they agree to participate in your clinical trial. If that is currently at 4 weeks, you may, in your goals for the project, identify that you want to bring that down to 3 weeks, et cetera. So you just really need to gather that data, those data points up front, keep those in mind as you work through this. So I will go ahead and hand it back to, go ahead.
One comment I want to make before we move on to the next one is that usually when we finalize a flow chart for a process, it's not uncommon to receive the feedback and say, well, this is too complicated. I mean, I think this is not actually what our process looks like. And then we go in depth and look at the actual, all the steps, who's responsible for what. And then they say, wow, I didn't. Now, yeah, I think this is accurate, but I didn't see it this way. So it's just portraying it graphically that actually provides a lot of values to see what steps are not needed, what steps cannot, don't add value, and what steps can be actually removed to streamline the process. So this is a great tool to actually just understand the process and see what things can be streamlined. And again, going back to the point that, well, it is better to have, just a graphical way to see that in reality and then try to improve it from there. So this is a stage where we actually put everything together and see, okay, this is the current process, and the flow chart is a great tool to do that because we can actually integrate different micro processes within the bigger picture. So let me pass to the next stage here. So stage number 3 is a design, analyze and design stage. This stage basically comprises of analyzing and understanding the measures collected, performing cost analysis to determine reasons for gaps in performance, and identify the areas and amount of improvement that is needed. The steps in this stage basically are to prepare and facilitate meetings, to communicate with the subject matter experts. We have a process facilitation meetings in which we do gap and root cause analysis. We consider updated process options, as we mentioned before. We also assess the impacts, benefits, risks, and costs of each alternative, and then we document the new processes. The usual tools that we use during this stage are basically the fishbone diagram, which is also called Ishikawa, or cause and effect diagram. We were going to show these tool in detail on the next slide. We also use 5 Whys. So 5 Whys is a industrial engineering tool that is used to identify root causes of a problem. We also use flowcharts to portray future states, and then we can do the gap analysis there. A Pareto chart, which is basically a bar graph that is used to analyze data about the frequency of causes in a process and to focus on the most significant ones. And we also have a recommendation and priority ranking template document, which is used to present the results of the analysis and provide recommendation improvements. Christina will show an example of the fishbone diagram in the next slide.
Great, thank you. All right, so as you mentioned, once we have our current state process defined, the next step is really to dig in and analyze where that process is breaking down. So again, thinking back to our example of selecting trial participants, we're looking for the breakdown, why this might be failing, and this analysis tool is the fishbone diagram. So think of it as a cause and effect diagram. It's useful in helping a group brainstorm to identify the causes of a problem and sorting those ideas into categories. So as you can see, and this is a very simple fishbone, there might be several arrows pointing into the main categories. So we have benefits don't offset the cost of time as a cause leading into a lack of participant commitment. So again, it helps you to brainstorm where the process might be falling down, those causes, and then organizing them into categories. So when you work through this exercise with your experts and the other team members, you'll tease out key information behind what's driving the issues, as well as to start categorizing them and possibly identify some updates to the process. So if through this exercise you see that there are 5 arrows going into lack of participant commitment, that may be where you want to focus versus the other areas. Not that any are less important, but you may want to realize what the low-hanging fruit is, where you'll have the biggest impact in updating and revising a process there. So just, again, a tool. And if you're facilitating this session, you may want to consider, do you go in with a total blank slate, start with a blank whiteboard and work with the team to get this information? Do you come in with a few categories already identified based on some of the previous work that's been done? Or do you feel like that would maybe sway the group? So maybe, again, go back to that blank slate. So just some things to consider. But again, a great tool for triggering conversation, really delving in and identifying the true cause of some of the issues within the process. Right,
yeah, and let me complement something here, Christina. This tool is very useful to basically complement it with the 5 whys as well. So you can start with these, which is a very high level diagram, and then you can start making questions about why is this happening, and then you have your causes and effect diagram. But this is just a great starting point to actually start understanding more about the problem that you want to solve. So again, it's a great tool and fairly simple to apply, and we use it every day basically. Okay, let me jump to stage number 4 now. This stage is about executing the process improvement plan and create a change management plan. The plan is tested and validated with stakeholders, and the process improvement and change management plan are communicated to stakeholders to execute the actual improvement. The tool that we use here is usually an implementation roadmap. We have a communication plan, and we have usually as well a RACI chart to see who needs to be accountable for the different tasks in the implementation plan, and who needs to be communicated, who needs to be informed about changes. And we also use MS Project for project plan and Gantt charts. Some people like to see the details of the plan, and others are more of a high level overview person. So for those we use implementation roadmap, and then for the ones that want to see more details, we use the project plans and Gantt charts in detail. In the next slide, Christina will show the tool that we use here.
Great. So we're going to show a process improvement timeline and roadmap. But again, thinking what we've gone through so far with our challenge here for our client of selecting trial participants. So we defined that problem. We've worked through uncovering root causes. We started to identify some solutions, and now we're pulling together into a implementation plan. So if you're, again, leading this effort, you'd create this plan for rolling out the changes as well as executing on that change management plan. I think that gets overlooked often. So change management really is the key to success sometimes. That change management plan should outline who the changes to the process will impact, how those changes will be communicated. What's the training plan in place? Maybe some of the changes, it might include bringing in some piece of technology that end users need to be trained on. What does that training look like? Will you be training a trainer? Will everyone be attending the training, etc.? Maybe some roles need to be reallocated. So a process improvement effort might relieve some people of some manual processes that they've been doing. So what will they be doing with the time that's now been freed up? And also a communication plan as well. So you want to effectively manage the change so that these changes to the process are widely adopted versus people applying the processes initially, and then it's a temporary change and people revert back to the old way of doing things. So this implementation roadmap, again, is a great communication tool to leadership, to your stakeholders, to team members, to some of the folks doing the work about where they are in the project. So everyone's in alignment and on the same page of what activities are taking place, what those milestones are, and where they are within the effort. So great communication tool to share with folks, and be sure to include those change management pieces as well as the hands-on changes and updates to the processes themselves. All right, I'll hand it back to Gerhard for stage 5.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, change management piece is the one that we actually adapted to have more engagement and to reduce the resistance of any process improvement project that we have. And it's been very, very successful for us. On the stage number 5, we have the transition piece. So transition of ownership, and basically stages here, all the different steps that we have here are to collect data and remeasure the metrics against the baseline, execute transition to operations and operational governance, publicize the successful solution among everyone, and then we have a closeout and lessons learned session as well. So in this stage of the methodology, we want to transition the ownership of the improvement project to operations team. With that, we actually do a measuring of the metrics that we stated before, and we see if the actual improvement target was met. If yes, well, that's great. If not, there might be some areas that need a bit of more effort. So that's basically with another team that we'll take on into the needle in the direction. And then we will, in order to do that, we will also use different tools that we used before, like fishbone diagrams. We can use a metrics within a control chart, a project charter again with an updated version, and then lessons learned template to capture valuable feedback collected throughout the process. Another thing that is very, very useful is to actually communicate the outcome of the process improvement initiative, and then having a final review to capture valuable feedback. So those two items of communication, either feedback and kind of a one-way communicating the outcome, is usually the best way to finalize an improvement project, because people know where their efforts actually went throughout the improvement project, and at the end they can see what improvement are actually being measured. So in the next slide, Christina will share an example of a close-up lessons learned document as well.
Sure, thank you. And again, so here we are in the transition phase. All your processes for selecting trial participants, all the ability to measure those processes to ensure people are still engaging with the new processes and that the improvements are taking place. That's returned to operations for them to maintain going forward. But I think those last two on the left are key. So publicizing the successful solution amongst everyone and closing out and lessons learned. So this template is a document that communicates a synopsis of the project, what was learned at the beginning of the project. So all the data gathering that the team did, those whiteboard sessions where those processes were mapped out, what was learned there, what information was gleaned that might be of interest to stakeholders, establishing that starting point. The document would also include how many opportunities for improvement were identified and implemented. So if through that process, the team, expected to see 25 opportunities to improve the process, and they found 50, they implemented 45. It's a pretty phenomenal project there. May also call out what's remaining that could be improved in future projects. It's also covers the final steps of the project, as well as a moment to say thank you to the team that executed those improvements, as well as the sponsors and those supporting leadership members. So it's a great document. You could also include some of your closeout and lesson learned information if you wanted to be transparent and share some of the challenges that were met by the team and how they overcame them, and things to consider going forward. So a great document. Again, I think everyone, you get to the end of a project, you're measuring how well people have adopted the new process and reporting on those using various tools, but just taking that moment to celebrate the success, communicate it out to the organization, as well as formally closing out the project and conducting those lessons learned. Hopefully you're setting the course for a culture of continuous process improvement at the organization. So once you start documenting those lessons learned, they will serve you in future projects.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Christina. And then on to start summarizing what we have seen, we like process flowchart. So this is a process flowchart in detail of the methodology that we have. So basically by stage, we go into the details of what needs to be done on each stage. And for each of these process boxes, we have narratives and we have templates in order to help us drive these and not reinvent the wheel every time that we go into a process improvement project. So it's very useful to see at what stage in the process we are, what's the forecast, what's the look ahead to actually finish the project. And then we have, with these translated into a project plan, we can see estimate at completion. We can see how many hours we will actually be spending on the project for the next few months. So it's a great tool and a great kind of in a nutshell view of what we actually perform throughout the analysis. Throughout the entire process improvement methodology. And Christina, you want to talk about the materials that we have?
Sure. So some of our process improvement materials, our tools and templates serve as accelerators in this process. So on the left there, we have a narrative. So one narrative per process step defines in detail what each process step entails. So that process is at the high level, selecting trial participants. And then again, on the right, as we talked about further, is that process problem description. Those are more specific. So that's really delving in, getting to the details for the problems taking place in the process, in the narrative. So correct me if I'm wrong, Gerhard, but if the narrative is related to selecting new trial participants and you identify a problem with technology and a problem with the selection process, you may have two of those problem descriptions that then feed into that narrative or supporting documents to that narrative. So two great tools that we have. Again, you just want to be very clear, work with your team, clearly define those problems, get them documented, issues and opportunities, call out owners and steps, etc.
Yeah, I think you said it well, Christina. And basically, the narratives are all about step by step for each of the boxes that we've seen here in the prior slide. So it's very useful to see. It's kind of a guideline or a handbook for each of the different processes that we go through. And then we have the tools and templates as well, as you mentioned. And we have a third and final life goal here. Which of the tools you just saw resonated the most with you? The tools that we showed are the project charter, the improvement project description, the process flow chart, fishbone diagram, the timeline and roadmap. And then if you have other things that probably you didn't see or you like to see, please comment in the chat. Let's see here.
We'll give it a few seconds, about 10 seconds, if you can pull it in there. So far, fishbone diagram seems to be winning. Let's see. Give it about 5 more seconds. All right, no, it's pretty close.
Pretty close.
All right.
Looks like the flow chart is the winner.
Yeah, the flow chart. Let's see, we have a comment here. So Claudio mentions that all of them are actually required at his site. So yes, I agree with that. Let's see if we have the final results here. I think a flow chart is the one that is very, very useful just to have a good understanding of the process. Thank you, Nancy. She liked them all. Thank you very much. And I think, yeah, now the poll is closed. Well, in conclusion, processes are basically the backbones of everything we do in business. Improving them can only benefit the clients and provide professional satisfaction in the workplace. So we acknowledge that the process improvement methodology is a cyclical process with 5 steps designed to lead an organization through the challenges of process improvement. It is customer-driven. We make it metrics-focused and results-oriented. And basically, this journey that we started can take us to continue to learn about process improvement, start conversation around processes, process improvement with your organization. And, we're here to help. So please keep in mind that we like efficiency on processes, and we can help get the buy-in from stakeholders for a process improvement effort. So if any of the concepts and tools that we presented are of your interest, please reach out. The tools we presented are available in the link we will show in the next slide. And if you have, yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Oh, I was just going to say, Deborah's already put that link in the chat. So in the chat, there's a link to some of those tools and templates you just saw that feel free to download and use.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gerhard and Christina. I just want to open up if there are any questions for the speakers. I think this is a highly valuable webinar. If you check out actually the page we just included the link for, you will see that many of the tools that they just shared, they're actually sharing the templates with you. Highly valuable. I mean, you don't get this usually in most webinars, but you know, they're sharing the templates. All the things are there already all set for you to be able to use for your own projects. So definitely check out. And just wanted to make sure if there are any questions for our speakers, you can just input them in the chat. If not, I want to thank Motive Power for sponsoring this great conversation, very informative, and all the tools as well they're sharing for Gerhard and Christina to be joining for an amazing presentation. For everyone that's joined as well, just so you know, after this, by tomorrow, likely Gerhard and Christina will be reaching out to you with also the recording of this in case you missed anything. But we do have some questions. So please explain where the firms are located again. So we just put it. So if you see Nancy, just put a link in the chat, MailChimp link. If you will just follow that link, you will actually see under resources where they have all of the templates that they actually shared in this presentation. For you to click and download. So let us know if you're able to see that. Claudia will be able to share the slide via email. So I believe, yes, Gerhard and Christina, you'll be reaching out to everyone with
Yes.
some slides. Perfect. All right. So
Absolutely.
Look out for that. Likely tomorrow they'll be reaching out, and also with the recording of the webinar in case you missed any sections or you want to go over it for their explanation. All right, so I think that's it. I don't think we got any other additional questions in. Any last minute words, Christina, Gerhard?
No, thank you everyone for your time. Great conversation today. Thanks for your questions and participating in the polls.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Deborah. That was very fun. And thank you, Christina.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending. And hope to see you next time. And again, if you feel free to reach out directly to us at info@clinbiz.com. And also you'll be hearing from Gerhard and Christina with their contact information in case you want to continue the conversation with them as well. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an excellent week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Deborah.
Thank you.
Bye.